On Saturday night, November 19th, a mass shooting at a gay nightclub in Colorado Springs left 5 people dead and more than 24 people injured. So, to give you guys a basic rundown, there is a gay club called Club Q in Colorado Springs. They were hosting an event. People were there, chilling, vibing, doing whatever. And a person walked in with a rifle and started shooting people. They ended up killing 5 people and injuring 25 others. Eventually, somebody tackled him and started beating him up with his own pistol that he had in his pocket or like on his sidearm. They were able to stop him, but not before he killed 5 people and 25 others. Now, 5 people and injured 25 others. Now, the police have yet to confirm that this was a hate crime, but the suspicion is obviously there, considering the guy, like, this isn't some gang related stuff, because he didn't go in there with like a pistol, with a rifle, shoots up 5 people, killing them, shoots 25 others, injuring them, tackled, beaten, and they stop him. They got the guy charged with a hate crime. Is he actually charged with a hate crime now? Oh, this is actually a story about the person who tackled him. Got you. Well, either way, those are the basics of the case. I have some things I want to say, but let's let the story play out a little bit. You get a little bit more of the nuanced details and some updates. Then I'll give you my thoughts about why this happened and what we need to do in the future. And I know a lot of you guys are like asking who's at fault. I'm not going to call out specifics, but I will call out behavior. Let's listen to the story first.
We are once again starting another week talking about another mass shooting in this country. At least 5 dead, 25 injured at least at an LGBTQ plus nightclub in Colorado Springs. Police do have the suspected 22-year-old gunman in custody as Colorado's second largest city now struggles to make sense of this massacre.
Joining us now with the latest from Colorado Springs is ABC's chief national correspondent Matt Gutman. And here in studio with us, we have the president and CEO of GLAAD, the world's leading LGBTQ media advocacy organization, Sarah Kate Ellis. Welcome to both of you. Matt, I'm going to begin with you. Talk a little bit about where this investigation is right now.
Investigators are pouring through that crime scene, Amy. It's obviously pretty big. They've got dozens of eyewitnesses left to interview, but they're also trying to get to the bottom of certain questions, like what is the motive here? How long was this attack planned for? How did the suspect obtain those weapons? When did he do it? And did he do it legally? And why weren't red flag laws invoked to try to prevent him from getting those weapons, given the fact that he had been arrested about a year ago for allegedly making a bomb threat against his family and on kidnapping charges? So lots of questions still facing investigators this morning.
But Matt, I wonder you.
It's another thing. This isn't even the first time he's made a violent threat like this. He has made violent threats against his own family before, like bomb threats against your family, which is a weird thing to do, by the way. Like, if I was threatening to murder a family member, not saying that I ever would, but let's say I had to for whatever reason, why would I say bomb threat? Like, stab, shoot, these feels like the easiest way. Why I was like, I'm gonna go back to my home, I'm gonna like craft some TNT on a workbench, come back. Like, why a bomb threat specific? Anyway, I don't know why it's specifically a bomb threat.
You can give us a little more about that particular question. Should he even been able to legally possess weapons and get into that previous arrest, I believe it was in 2021?
We have posed this question, TJ, to the sheriffs, the local police department, to the DA, to the mayor. We're not getting answers right now because at some point that case was dismissed. It's still sealed. We are trying to unseal it at this point, but that's what they're saying. That's why they're saying that the red flag laws apparently weren't invoked or could not be invoked.
But I know we want to point out law enforcement officers, even the mayor this morning on Good Morning America, pointing to those patrons who were there, who prevented this from being an even bigger tragedy. Talk a little bit about how the suspect was detained when the shooting began.
TJ spoke to the mayor as well. We both did. The suspect apparently went into the club shooting right away. The video, surveillance video, shows that. But immediately these 2 patrons charged him, apparently without thinking. And according to investigators, they basically took him down. Not only that, he had 2 guns on him. They took 1 gun, which was a handgun, and began beating him with it. They took him on the ground, and that's where he was, on the ground, when police finally arrived. And officials are absolutely
I gotta say, again, the dude murdered 5 people, 25 others injured. But how unbelievably pathetic is it that you get murked with your own gun? Not even get murked, they took your pistol and then they beat the crap out of you with your own pistol. That is pretty pathetic.
About one thing in this case, and that's if it weren't for those two heroes, more people would have died.
That is incredible, given they said he had so much ammunition on him and the damage he could have done. So, Sarah Kate, let's bring you in here now. Authorities are going to investigate this, look into whether or not this was a hate crime. But what is your reaction to what we are seeing now in Colorado Springs over the weekend?
Sure.
Okay, so that's all the bare bones details. There is one more tidbit of information that I would be remiss if I didn't mention, because people keep bringing it up in chat. And that is, this shooter was actually the grandson of a GOP lawmaker, a state assembly person who compared January 6th.
Bad Dragon Love 69 has donated $15. Another dinner per diem for the CIA's favorite homo-romantic cutie, less than 3.
Hey, thank you so much, Bad Dragon, okay? The CIA's favorite homo-romantic cutie. My God, man. They look, every time I walk into the CIA office, I am asked my pronouns. I really appreciate how accommodating they have been for me, okay? There's a lot of amazing internship opportunities at the CIA. They should all make obvious use of. Thank you very much. But no, for real, thank you for the $15. I appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. So there is one more piece of information that I would be remiss if I did not mention. And that is the fact that this shooting suspect is also the grandson of a GOP lawmaker, a state assemblyman, who compared January 6th to the American Revolution. It's Randy Vopiel. That's the state assemblyman. We'll read this quickly, and then we'll get into specifics. On Saturday night, November 19th, a mass shooting at a gay nightclub in Colorado Springs left 5 people dead and more than 24 people injured. The man arrested in connection with the attack, 22-year-old Anderson Lee Eldridge, is facing 5 counts of first-degree murder and 5 counts of bias-motivated crime causing bodily injury, according to court filings. In CBS 8 San Diego, it was reporting that Eldridge is the grandson of California State Assemblyman Rando Vopiel. CBS 8 San Diego Steve Price reports that Vopiel once drew harsh criticism of several colleagues for comparing the January 6th attack on the Capitol to American Revolutionary War. He's a far-right Republican, 72 years old, and an avid supporter of the Tea Party. After a mob of Donald Trump supporters violently attacked the Capitol, he declared that this is Lexington and Concord. First shots fired against tyranny. Tyranny will follow in the aftermath of the Biden swear-in on January 20th. So, they have yet to dignify this, or not dignify, but classify this as a hate crime. But the motives, I think, are pretty clear. While we should still wait for reports, but I would say that the motives are pretty clear to anyone who's willing to at least fill in the gaps in their head. Again, we could find out more information as this goes on. We probably will find out more information as this goes on. But we have a general idea of the picture that's being painted here, of a far-right maniac going into a gay nightclub, shooting it up because of their hatred for the LGBTQ plus community, whose grandfather has also been somebody who has endorsed violence politically against his political opponents, like on January 6th, trying to compare it to the American Revolution and justifying the violence that led to many people dying on January 6th, and many people being arrested and injured, permanently injured, having injuries they'll live with for the rest of their lives. It isn't hard to imagine that this person, this California State Assembly person, who has endorsed political violence before, could possibly have an impact on the people in his family and them participating in politically motivated violence and this type of a hate crime, this type of a hate attack. So, I want to be blunt here. I don't want to be too verbose, because a lot of other people have said what I'm about to say, and they've said it better. If you paint LGBTQ plus people like pedophiles, like groomers, this is the inevitable consequence. This will always, always, always happen, inevitably, at some point, if you're classifying the LGBTQ plus community as groomers and pedophiles. There is no group of Americans that people care about more deeply and want to protect more deeply than children. They are the most vulnerable amongst us. And so when you portray queer people as predators who are going out on the streets to prey upon children, either to make them gay so they can molest them for some reason, or they can, or they're going to make them trans, force them to be trans, or brainwash them into joining the LGBTQ plus community, or that they might be preyed upon in some manner. Once you portray queer teachers and you portray queer people in that fashion, it is not going to be that difficult to convince people like this to go out and kill them. Because if you genuinely believe, and this is the same thing about January 6th, if you genuinely believe that the election was stolen on January 6th, then what happened isn't that crazy, to at least you. Because to you, the election was stolen. Our democracy is under threat. We're about to lose our democracy, something that hundreds of thousands of Americans have died protecting. Hundreds of thousands throughout generations. And now it's about to be stolen. If you genuinely believe the election was stolen, then what they did on January 6th is completely reasonable from that position. That's why the lies that were told about the election being stolen by Donald Trump on Twitter and on Truth Social and all around, where he said, hey, the voting machines changed the votes, or like millions of illegals voted, and, calling Brian Kemp, trying to make him just find the votes to make him win, asking for the direct amount of votes to win the state of Georgia, the claims about bamboo paper, all this nonsense, all of it which was defeated in court, by the way, or not even reviewed in court because they didn't do the correct filings. All of this nonsense is what led to January 6th. Because if you believe the election was stolen, then January 6th is the only natural outcome if you're somebody who feels as a patriot. As a patriot, you must defend your country. And that's why those lies were so insidious. Because those lies made the irresponsible, made what was violent and disgusting and atrocious behavior on that day seem reasonable, because of how they framed it and how they lied about how the election went. And that's the same thing when it comes to this. If you lie about queer people and paint them as pedophiles, if you lie about queer teachers and paint them as groomers who are going to make your kids gay so they can molest them, or that's going to make your kids trans and they're going to cut off your kid's penis and they're going to cut off your boob and they're going to force it, and it's going to happen without you even knowing. It's going to happen without you even knowing. In the middle of the night, they're going to cut off your kid's penis. They're going to forcefully transfer their brains. They're going to goggle it up. They're going to make them trans. Then they're going to molest them. If you believe that, even though that's not happening, if you believe that, even though the cases where this is happening are so minuscule in the grand picture of things, but if that's something you believe, then this becomes reasonable. Because to you, you're shooting predators, you're shooting pedophiles, you're shooting molesters, you're shooting people who are going to go out and hurt children. And that's what makes the lie so insidious, because it makes the irrational, the insane, and the horrifying seem reasonable in the minds of people like this through these insidious lies and propaganda. And the thing is, these things exist in like a social media space, where if you interact with a post, like say a Libs of TikTok post, this will be the only direct call out, I'll make the whole video. If you like Libs of TikTok posts about groomers and on all these LGBT people doing these horrifying, horrible things, what Twitter is going to do, and this is just how social media works, is it's naturally going to serve you more content that they will expect you to interact with. So if you're interacting with content that makes you angry about LGBT people, they're going to serve you more content like that should make you angry about LGBT people. And so what just became one post about groomers in your timeline becomes 2 posts, becomes 3 posts, becomes a whole swarm of posts. So that every single time you're scrolling on Twitter, it's, look at these pedophiles, look at these groomers, look at these molesters, look at these predators. Look at them. They're all in the LGBT community and they're coming after your kids. And you're seeing it time after time after time after time. Every day as you scroll on Twitter. Every day as you scroll on Facebook. Every day as you scroll on these social media companies. And let me be clear. The Facebook whistleblower admitted to this. She admitted that Facebook prioritizes hateful type of dialogue and discussions that cause division because it's more likely to get interactions from people than, say, a happy post or a more positive post. The Facebook social media space is almost coded specifically to create division. That wasn't the intention, but that's what it ends up doing by prioritizing these more of hateful, divisive posts that people are going to argue about in the comments, because you're more likely to go back and forth in an argument than to just like a post about a puppy and keep moving. And so the people who are being lied to are being served these lies on a daily basis, on repeat, over and over and over. And so every day, if you're being told on social media and in these bubbles that the internet puts you to, especially in these online Discord communities and like in these Twitter groups and all that, where they're going to be talking about the same things, you start to think there's like pedophiles around every corner. You start to think there's like molesters and people are going to chop off children's genitals around every corner. Remember when Matt Walsh had that interview on Joe Rogan and he was like, oh, it's probably hundreds of thousands of mastectomies have been performed on children. Probably, actually, no, it's millions. Millions. And then they researched it and it was only 1,000. Like Jamie looked it up live on the show, it was only 1,000. And Matt Walsh was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm wrong. If you're in the social media space and you see that type of dialogue being talked about time after time after time after time, like that's not going to be that surprising. Because that they come to these conclusions of these completely skewed views of the world, that this is going on everywhere, but really isn't. And so yes, I do think there's some fingers to be pointed at the way we discuss queer people in this country and the way we label them. If you label a community as pedophiles and groomers, which is one of the most disdained groups like in history, stuff like this is going to naturally happen, especially when these social media spaces are such cesspools and circle jerks, telling people again and again just what they want to believe, what they already believe is going on. They're just going to reinforce those beliefs because they want you to stay on the social media platforms. The only way we stop stuff like this from happening is we change how we discuss queer people in this country. If you continue to label them as pedophiles and groomers, as we've done for the last 80 years, and even before that in this country, there used to be these old police ads where they would talk about beware the homosexual. They're going to come for your kids, that were released in the 60s, that were made with the cooperation of local police departments. This isn't a new phenomenon. I know a lot of people think it's a new phenomenon, but that's just because you're not that old. You don't remember these ads on television. You don't remember that classification of queer people. We need to stop this age-old attack on queer people in its tracks, and we need to check it every place we see it. Where if somebody's trying to accuse queer people of, oh, queer people are just groomers and pedophiles, it needs pushback, and it needs to be attacked head on. Head on. This isn't something that is just like, oh, he just kind of threw that out there, it's like a whatever statement. These words have an impact. If I, like, every day on my show went out and I said Italians are evil, Italians are coming after you, Italians are controlling the banks, Italians are doing this, I can't just look around kind of like going do 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 if we see a spike in anti-Italian hate crimes and them getting lynched or shot and murdered or blown up. The words we use have an impact, and our words have more of a space to grow and foster and spread online than they ever have in human history. We have more access to information and an ease of access to creating our own internet shows and programs than ever before in human history. We have never had a lower barrier of entry for somebody to host like a radio program or a podcast or a show of some sort. But with that lower barrier of entry, this irresponsible speech that's being used is easier to platform because there's platforms everywhere that you could use. And so, as we have the benefits of the internet, which is a beautiful thing as we communicate with each other, we need to be careful with the language we use when talking about minority groups, especially minority groups that have been historically targeted. We should be careful with the words that we use when we talk about anyone or any group of people, but especially groups of people that have shown a propensity to be targeted by hateful individuals. Stop calling queer people groomers. Stop pushing this propaganda. These words have impact. These words are the bullets that load up the gun. We need to stop it. And somebody's going to be like, okay, Dylan, how do you stop it? I don't really have a solution. I mean, we can always try to like combat it head on. There's of course like the deplatforming argument. You could try to go out and get these accounts banned that are calling all queer people pedophiles. But all I'm saying is like, we can't keep playing the game where we're just twiddling our thumbs and watching people call queer people groomers and pedophiles and pretending that that doesn't have an impact or pretending that that person isn't contributing to the environment that creates attacks like this. And I'm not saying that the person who created Libs of TikTok went out there and shot those people, but I am saying that people who use the same rhetoric as Libs of TikTok did brainwash these people and did put them in a position to do what they're doing now.